I've been meaning to do this for already like more than a month now, and the reason why I did not do it was partly because it was lazy, but partly because the whole unfolding drama around Emilia Perez. So for all of you who are even like remotely interested in this film, there was a huge sort of blow to its Oscar chances because its star, Carla Sofia Gascon, was basically in the middle of a big media shitstorm because of her tweets and sort of views, which were, considered somewhat Islamophobic and problematic in general, which sort of tanked this film's possibility of probably winning maybe any, or definitely the major awards, because it was nominated for like 13th Academy Awards. And so I kind of wanted to keep the situation developing, because the moment when I sort of wanted to film this, it was sort of going on. But now that it's almost the Academy Awards, it's probably the last time that I can say how awesome it would be for Emilia Perez to actually win the Academy Award, for the Best Actress, the Best Picture, Best Supporting Actress, all of the 13 categories. I think the more the better, the more the better. And the reason why I think it should is not because I think it's an amazing film. It's definitely the best film that I've seen, but it's definitely the most Oscar-worthy film, especially given the standards of the Oscars for the past 5 years, where you had, films like Everything Everywhere All at Once, a truly horrific, awful film. And to be honest, also The Parasite, which hasn't aged well. Like, it just kind of is one of those typical sort of moralistic, very, very actually shallow films that only got it because it was sort of, of the topic in 2020. So I think kind of compared to that, Oppenheimer is also quite bad. Coda, Nomadland, likewise, not really great films, but they were all films sort of that were made to win the Academy Award and sort of made to make it big. And to be honest, in a lot of ways, Jacques Audiard's vision for Emilia Perez truly kind of, you should really be awarded for the fact that you want to make an opera about a trans Mexican cartel head who kind of wants to reunite with his wife and have that sort of made by Netflix with almost no Mexican cast, and which you end with, there are spoilers, so you can stop here if you don't want them, but that ends with like a religious procession celebrating the said trans cartel head. To be honest, compared to the other films this year as well, it is actually quite good. I prefer Substance by far, but Anora is horrific. It's truly a boring, sort of, completely unrealistic, hysterical piece of work. Dune 2 is truly one of the worst films that I've ever seen. Like, it's so bad. So even there, Emilia Perez, although it's not as good as The Substance, holds up, because for all of its many flaws, it is actually a very entertaining concept, both as a sort of a cultural for this cultural moment where you have obviously Trump in the US and kind of culture changing a lot, but also as a film itself. And I will first speak about it as a film, some of you may know sort of about it, sort of more details about it, how it's like this completely insane idea of an operatic, very unrealistic, as Audiard himself says, sort of depiction of this, internal struggle of this cartel head who decides he is a woman or she is a woman, and who kind of decides to reunite with her family, but then also become a very good person by creating this NGO. And you know, it really like it's almost like producer level, kind of insane. You know, there's like this the sex change operation song. It's actually supposed to be like whatever, because it's not an opera, like it's a musical. And then you have these like very sort of weird sequences with Selena Gomez kind of being crazy, and it's just like, I mean, it's truly a visionary piece. And the fact that, you know, Jacques Autriard also decided not to do anything about it sort of in Mexico. It was mostly filmed in, well, not everything, but like most of it was filmed in the soundstage in Paris, where he said, when, you know, he did not want any more of the sort of Mexican, but really does show this sort of like, it is really like a platonic ideal of a sort of Oscar film and what's considered like high art, or like, frankly, to call it neoliberal kitsch. It's, by the way, a term by an ex-user called Gio, who has this cool podcast, Gio's Content Corner. And yeah, like it truly is like an epitome of the past maybe 5 years, maybe, you know, past 15 years of culture. So post Obama up until now. And yeah, and this really makes me kind of talk about the film in a wider context, because I think what a lot of the reviewers fail to notice when they're sort of talking about it is how actually it also does epitomize this like very specific cultural moment. It's actually like Audiard's, or maybe not his personal, although kind of it does track with his interest. Like his past film, Rust and Bone, also not maybe the most interesting film, but actually a decent one, with Marion Cotillard and this Belgian actor. You know, his interest is in the sort of male-female relationships. And actually, the point of Emilia Perez, despite all of its insanity, is actually thinking about what man's role is in the world, and I think that's sort of the key that a lot of people are missing when watching it, because, you know, on one hand you have this fantasy of being, so basically, you know, which way you know, highly educated Western middle-aged or older man, you know, have the power fantasy of being like this super cool Mexican cartel owner, but that's not, you know, good enough. So the way that you can actually project power in the world, according to this liberal worldview, this is not my worldview, but, and maybe I'm just like, you know, unfairly ascribing it to Autriard, but maybe not, is that actually, you know, even if you're like a cool Mexican cartel owner with like a hot wife and a lot of money and you can do whatever you want, actually what kind of would make you even cooler and more powerful is to become like a middle-aged trans woman with an NGO. And if you watch the film this way, you really kind of see these like insecurities of cultured men in the West these days, you know, because the whole story of the film is how, okay, you know, he's going to atone for his toxic masculinity by simply, you know, this one act of bodily modification. And, you know, he's really working his best, you know, okay, he might not be going to prison, but, you know, well, you know, he kind of had this like really radical reassignment surgery. And so what he does is then, you know, on top of that, kind of try to be this like very caring person. He takes care of his, well, I guess now ex-wife and the family. He tries to kind of put them through school without any sort of, you know, toxic masculinity. He's not even interfering in her love life that much. You know, he or she, whatever, organizes the NGO, and still your ex-wife, this like ingenue that you picked up from the streets, kind of destroys your life by you know, wanting even more out of you, and then, you know, you end up dead. Spoiler again. But then, you know, he still becomes this, or she, well, yeah, becomes this saint, and this is sort of the fantasy of a sort of certain type of a liberal man. And if you actually say it the way that I did, and no wonder it is like a problematic film already, but if he said it this way, it would actually be like even worse. I think, lack of diverse cast, this like very banal view of being trans that it posits, this like very weird morality where you can excoriate people for having hot women as they do in one song, while you're actually like an unredeemed, unpunished cartel head. It's like, all of this stuff aside, like I think the whole film would be completely panned if Audrillard came out and said, well, yeah, it is like a bit of a fantasy about what being man or like a cultured, quite privileged guy in 2025 or 2024 actually is. Because, it does really sound grotesque. And in a lot of ways, the film is really grotesque, but it kind of really is a very clear cultural testament that does not want to shy away from its message. Although, okay, obviously, like Zoe Saldana's character, who's this, she's an audience stand-in. She's supposed to be this like super smart lawyer who's like super ethical, but actually is not really ethical. Like she also does display this like very liberal view of the world where, if you're like meritocratic enough, if you're like a smart enough lawyer who kind of does understand that, okay, maybe you've been defending very bad people, but just the fact that you understood it really does allow you to kind of have this like moral high ground. And that's also very grotesque because, in traditional morality, like it is what you do that counts. It's not sort of how you feel about doing it, where, you're kind of conflicted, but actually don't do anything about it. And, it is all about the vibe. So I think, to sum it up, like the reason why Emilia Perez should really win all of the Academy Award nominations is because it is truly like the most unique sort of cultural artifact of, the world post 2008, or arguably, the whole sort of liberal worldview that's been around since maybe even the 90s, and especially peaked from like 2020 up until now, and that's probably on its way out, partly because, even the people who were supposed to love Emilia Perez hate it. Like, it really tries to be everything, and just the fact that it is so grotesque manages to completely put people off. But still, it's a very valiant thing, much like Megalopolis. Although Megalopolis, for its own kind of morality and the weirdness and the way that it does sum up this like boomer lib worldview, does not really even come close to the complete sincerity in a way of Emilia Perez, of this like cool French dude who decides to kind of really spill his heart out and be like, yeah, if you really want to be a dude, this is what's going to happen to you. And even if you do all of these things, it's going to end tragically. So yeah, please do watch it. I'm not sure if it's on Netflix everywhere. Like it wasn't in Serbia for a while. And yeah, I mean, for my sort of Serbian subscribers, sorry for doing this in English, but yeah, there's a bigger audience. I don't think there's that many people in Serbia, unfortunately, or Serbian-speaking people, who are Googling Emilia Perez right now. But yeah, you should. And yeah, it is truly a stunning piece of work, if not maybe the best film. And the music, the Sex Change Operation song, it's gonna be there forever. So yeah, I really do hope the Academy awards Emilia Perez, much like the people in Cannes did, and gave it also the Best Actress award. And I'm not even joking. Like okay, I'm a bit like being facetious here, but it is truly an amazing piece of work that really does say a lot about the current culture, and it should really win the Oscars for what they are. They're definitely not, the award for the best film, but they are an award for that sort of film. So yeah, go Emilia.